Welcome to Life After Divorce Show, the number one show that is dedicated to discussing marriage, relationships, divorce, and most definitely happiness after divorce. We are committed to bringing awareness and shedding light on strategies that restore faith, purpose, love, and happiness. So today we have a very special guest. First off, my name is Tracey The Sacred CEO. I am your host of Life After Divorce Show. We have a special guest. I met this beautiful sister a few years back. We're both in the spa community. And she is known as the plant-based nutritionist. It's Nurse Angie Lee. Hey, Angie, thank you so much for the opportunity of sharing today with me. How you doing, sugar?
Yes. Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much, Miss Tracy, for even inviting me. I appreciate you, and I love this new endeavor.
Thank
Under
you
the
so
circumstances.
much. This next level, who would have known, honey? Divorce would have brought me here, telling all my business and letting us share the stories. Who would have thought?
But your pain is your purpose, though. So and I can contest to that.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, you are not divorced. You are married.
I am.
Yes. And
Hmm.
you have a very interesting situation.
I do.
Okay. Because you have gotten divorced and married the same man twice.
I
I
did.
think we need to know a little bit about this. Because divorce was in your life at one time, right?
Exactly. It was.
Okay. So I want you to help us understand where you were then and why you made your choice and how you spin the block. Because you spun the block, baby.
Okay. I sure can.
Some of the reasons why you married the same man, because that's very that's not common.
It's
That's
not
not
common.
common at
No.
all. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about who you are, Angie.
Okay. Well, my name is Angie Lee. I go by the name on social media is the Detoxologist Nurse. I am the co-host to the Lee Life Experiences, along with my husband, Demetrius Lee Sr. We were married back in 1999, and I was young. He's 6 years older than I am, so I can say where I was at that time. I was young. I didn't have any identity, and number one, I did not know what the foundation was for marriage to even be entering into a marriage at all. So that's what I can.
Hold up. You said something very important. You said I didn't have my identity
Hmm.
and I didn't know the foundations of marriage. I was young and
Okay.
inexperienced.
Very, very.
Okay. So would you say that your then husband, who is now your husband, was he more experienced?
Yes, like
Okay.
I said, I was young, so of course I didn't, even when I was going over your questionnaire, and it made me reflect back to some things that I guess I had suppressed. Because when I initially met him, I was typically like right at 15, going on 16, but I was still 15, and
Okay.
like I said, he's 6 years older. So of course, over the years, he ended up molding me at the time to what he wanted me to
Mhm.
be. So.
Come on, come on. You know, I had a relationship very similar with my first, um, I have to say, my first love. He was a lot older than me, and I was still kind of in that teen coming up on, adult stage. But that's exactly what he was doing. He wanted to mold his woman. He needed me to think like him, be like him, like not so much like him, but just be on point the way he needed me to be for the comfort of his life.
Exactly.
Okay. And me being young and not knowing my identity, it
Mhm.
it, it really it caused me a lot of grief. And it took me a long time to find myself after I left that relationship because I already had a identity, not knowing who I was at 16, but then here I am then in like took on a lot of his ways and his thoughts. It was like an impact, a double impact. And so
Yeah.
did you find it was like that for you, like a double impact because you had took on some of his identity?
Yes, like I said, because my father was not in the home, so I know, looking back on it, that was like a rule number one. That's why my heart goes out to young girls that I took once we separated. We were separated for like 4 years before we actually got the divorce. And so even after then, I remember laying in the bed and I was putting myself in harmful situations because I didn't know how to operate on my own. Anybody who said something, hey, hello, I thought I had to give them something. I had to give them the exchange. And I started a youth group for young girls growing up the power in less fortunate areas because I didn't want them to be just like me.
Okay.
I wanted to expose them and didn't want them to get it from a man.
So how important is it to have a solid identity before you even get into a marriage, let alone a relationship? Come on, tell us that.
Yes, well, being number one, being identity, and I feel like as women, and I feel like we as women have a responsibility that when we do see young girls, kind of, not looking at them and fuss at them, or try to condemn them about being sexy red, because if that's what have worked for sexy red, that's the reason why sexy red exists. And I
Yes.
know during my years, I had a sexy red experience. So,
Yes.
we can't throw that to the wayside because even though some of us know more and we know how to prune it and cover it up, but let's be truthful in being able to expose, because I went to the church. The church did not tell me how to operate and what I was supposed to be doing. So I was crying out for help, but nobody, could help me. But let me run it back. I was molested at 13. So
Okay.
there was already a scar on me then. So again, I talk about the exchange, and the reason why the exchange is so important, because we as young women, we think when somebody give us something or do something for us, we don't know how to just say it. And we don't even know how, some of us don't even know how to take a compliment. We don't know how to say, oh, Trace, you got on a nice shirt. You may not be used to somebody giving you just a compliment and just saying thank you without you having to do something. And because somebody have did this for you, you feel obligated to give them something, even if it's your prized possession, is your body, your mind, and your soul.
You said that you didn't have a father in the home.
Mm-mm.
How did that impact
That impact
your
me.
ability to make a choice as far as choosing a mate or choosing a man or choosing a husband?
It affect me a lot because again, my father and my mom was separated. So then he went later on to get incarcerated. He has now, deceased. But I remember going down and, going to the prison, and he began to ask me like, Angie, why didn't you tell me about the molestation? And I'm talking about, I was early on, I was speaking on platforms because again, your pain is your purpose, and some people don't want to talk about it. But when I looked at myself, a lot of lost identity was because he didn't put those beautifuls and hellos. And, I remember my father kissing me on my forehead. So when my, ex-husband at the time, when I was dating him, when he did that, he immediately transitioned into that father role because now, and that's what older men do. They go for the spirit of manipulation. And
Mm.
they have what you don't have. So of course, you looking at them, they come to save it. And that's what you're
Okay.
looking at them for.
Oh, girl, you said so much, especially with us being young girls. We are programmed, conditioned, and
Yes,
taught
yes.
to look for the savior.
Look for the savior.
Look for the man to save us. It is in the fabric
Uh-huh.
of the conditioning, honey,
Yes.
because they give us all them fairy tales. You know what I'm saying? We got the Sleeping Beauties, we got the
Yes.
Snow Whites, we even got the Tiana. Now, let me tell you about Tiana and why I'm upset about that. Because finally, when Disney want to give us a Black Princess, right?
Mhm.
She don't kiss the toad and he become a prince. She kissed the prince and he become a toad. What kind of shit is that? I was upset with Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
it's that savior complex. It's that,
Hmm.
he has to come save me. And I think they even men, I in my personal belief, I
Mm-hmm.
think they know this.
Mm-hmm.
They know, you know, and they manipulate with that.
Mm-hmm.
They manipulate with, okay, I'm coming to save you, I'm coming to protect you, when really it's control. You know, I'm coming. Yeah, it's like, so they kind of know this coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a silent, underwritten contract that we make with them,
Mm-hmm.
because they already know this coming in, because they've been programmed too, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, how old were you when you first got married, Angie?
I was 20, I want to say around 20, 22, 23.
Okay.
22, 23, and like I said, we have been together all this time. I had a son by him at this time, but abuse came along that journey now. And again, so you got the physical, you got me already, then been through molestation, father already not in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go into this relationship with this older guy that I feel like I need,
Mm-hmm.
and it has more to offer than I do because I'm coming from the trailer park. You know, he is one of the popular guys in the neighborhood, come from a two-parent home, well off. And so again, when they have more than what you have, you looking for that, and you end up taking things because you end up settling because you think that's the best is life has to offer you right now.
Yeah, at that moment.
At that moment.
At that moment, right?
At that
And
moment.
and at that moment, if that's what you believe, that's what it is.
That's
You
what
see
it
what I'm
is.
saying? But that's because we were inexperienced,
Inexperience.
young. You
Young.
know, you didn't even know you had options.
Didn't even know. And my mom worked second shift, so she wasn't aware that while she was working second shift. That's another thing that I, try to make sure I talk to our women, about that. When you leave in your home, and even when I have a talk with my mom, I don't blame her, but I did ask her, what was your guidelines or what was your prayer for your girls? I remember
Mm-hmm.
us sitting in the corner of a home, and my father had left, and we was facing repossession of our home. And I remember her crying out, praying, and she said, I never want y'all to depend on a man. And my sister and I, still to this day, and we had to be young, I'm saying like 7, 6, 7, 8 years old, but that stood out to my sister and I, that we always have that sense of independence, that
Mm-hmm.
even when I left my husband, men was asking me, why are you walking on? I didn't even know that a woman don't supposed to walk on the outside of the sidewalk. That had to be taught to me. My husband and I have always went 50-50, or I did majority of certain things. And a man was like, hey, you never pull your purse out in the presence of a gentleman. So when I had to learn these things only after, I'm like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that all this time? But again, he had molded me, programmed me, and I made his dreams come true. Driving nice cars. We built a nice 2-story home, living in the suburbs. So our lifestyle, Tracy, we were, and I know people got this what they say about Bill, but at the time, the Crosby was a nice family to look up to. And Demetrius and I could have had that lifestyle. But again, my mindset was not there for what he had. And because he had did so much, infidelity came and took my marriage. And once it was introduced to me, I would start talking to somebody who had less to offer, because I just wanted somebody to love me. And I'm not saying infidelity is the right way to do. I should have never did it, and honestly, I shouldn't have got married. But I felt like I was in it too deep to to stop the marriage, that I
Uh-huh.
went ahead along with the marriage, even though I know that my heart wasn't 100% there.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you. You said there was infidelity. So
Yeah.
it was infidelity on his part and your part, correct?
No, it was infidelity on my part. Well, I thought he was cheating. I had, I seen at that time, that's when pagers was out. And so
Okay.
I seen a number in a pager. And women being the investigators that we are, I kept dialing all the numbers until it matched up. And then I seen him out the window calling the number, and the number was busy. And then when the number was I kept dialing even after he hung up, and I heard a familiar voice on the phone, which happened to be my son's school teacher that he was talking to at the time. So that's what gave me the ammunition to go ahead. And I was like, I went to work because I worked in a mill around older women, and their advice was, you better sow your raw oats before you say I do. And that was like my permission slip. So, because it was a guy that was already trying to talk to me, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get him back because he had done cheated before. Now, this before marriage, but
Okay.
he said he never cheated, while we was married. But again, like I said, the abuse, the low self esteem, and being around your crowd. Let's put. I didn't see healthy relationships anyway to model after in order
Okay.
to give my son something different.
Yes, yes. So, would you say, now I'm going to ask you this,
Yeah.
would you say that you cheated as a way to kind of put the division in the relationship so that you could leave him? You see what I'm saying? So sometimes we do things to activate the
Yeah.
response because we're not strong enough in ourselves.
Well, at that time I didn't see like the separation. I didn't even have a plan. Again, I'm in my
Okay.
early 20s. So I just know that I was just tired of being um kind of taken advantage of with no, here I am, I'm a baby. Yes, he did put me in a nice home. I'm in the suburbs. I'm driving around a Lexus, you know, I had the material stuff, but
Yes.
he would go out and he would not come home. He would, drinking was a part of his problem. So I would hear, hey, he got this other girl driving, and he thought just because he wasn't having a relationship with him that he didn't care about the embarrassment of how he made us look as a family
Mhm.
because I'm there with his child. So after so much of all that snowballing of with cheating while we were dating, it kind of gave me the jumper cables to do it. But what I thought, Tracey, I thought I was just gonna go and cheat on him because I wanted to pay him back. I wanted him to see how it felt.
Okay.
I didn't know that I was gonna catch feelings for the person. I
Mhm.
didn't know that I didn't, you can't control all the things that come out. And if you do it one time, it's easy that when a altercation come up in the home, it's easy to go back out that door and do it again. And that's what happened.
Baby, you didn't know that you was gonna flip the script.
No.
You ain't know it was gonna be a
Mm-mm.
twist in the game.
No,
And
no.
see, that's what happens. Many times we will take part and activate some stuff that we're not ready for. We think we
Exactly.
know,
We
but
think
we don't know
no.
really what we are stepping into.
No.
So I'm glad you talked about that. Like you said, you thought you was just going, you know, paying back. You was gonna get a little revenge, and as women, we like silent revenge.
Silent
We
revenge.
do stuff,
Mhm.
honey, and still come home, cook and clean and
Yes.
kiss and wash clothes and all that. And the
Mhm.
whole time, baby, like we cold with it.
Yes.
We the best. The
Best.
best. We cats
Mhm.
at it, honey.
Yes.
We will do it and cover it up like a cat. They
Mhm.
dogs, they just shit all in the street. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You know?
Truthful. Yeah, truthful. And and
Yeah.
that's what I said, even so, but he never did catch me. The
Uh-huh.
the only way that he was going through a book, and
Okay.
that was when they had detailed phone logs, and that's how he ended up. When I'm saying catch me, I'm talking about not catch me in the act. He seen the detailed phone logs, and at that time, the guy that I had talked to, he had got incarcerated, and
Mhm.
so by that time, that's when he was able to go back and look at the phone and being able to trace the, call the numbers back. But then at that time, I just went ahead, and I remember us having a big fight on that time, and I knew, Tracey, that if I didn't get out, one of us was not going to make it out alive.
I
And
know that feeling. I know that feeling. And that was one of the reasons I chose to leave my marriage. I
yes,
said, and I spoke to him about that. I said, baby, we was somebody's gonna be physically hurt.
yes, yeah,
And that's a whole nother story. But
yeah.
yeah, so I had to leave to save both of us because
That's
it had gotten that mentally and emotionally, stressed and strained.
yes, yes.
So I get it. I get it. So what was different? What's what everybody, I know everybody, me included, honey, we want to know with all of that.
hmm
Oh, first I want to ask you, how old were you when you had your son, and then how old were you when you got married?
Okay, I was 21 when I had my son. So, like I said, I had to be around 23 because it was in 1999. So, when we got married, and we stayed together for 3 years. So even with all this going on, I'm fighting feelings that I have for this other person. Because time things happen, it's easy to revert back to the safe, what I felt like it was a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, after that last big old fight, that was it. Cause I remember laying on that floor and I knew I had to get out for me and my son. So once I did, and like I said, even leaving is a deal by itself because now that I have left my nice, comfortable home, now I have to go back to the trailer park to my mom
Yes.
and my sister done start having children. So I had to go to therapy. And I remember the lady giving me what is called an antidepressant. And I'm in my early 20s. And I was telling her, being transparent with her what was going on. And she said, well, take this medicine. This kind of help you kind of cope. I remember sitting in that kitchen and I took one pill and I had to start praying out, God, you got to help me. I'm not going to rely on no, medication, but I was torn because I have this young lover and I have my husband and we fussing, we fighting. And what do I do? Because at that time, but of course, once I had to go ahead and leave and try to start life all over. But even in between leaving, that's when I had that self-discovery of who Angie was. Because at that time, I got on online dating, made a fool out of myself with that. I almost went to prison. You probably wouldn't know me to this day because there was a drug deal gone back that could have killed me.
Oh
But
no.
when I say those 10 years that we was divorced,
Okay.
I had to, you either feast the famine because now, what you did in a marriage. Now, in order to compete, you got to bring out your sexy red because you can't compete with these men now and the women now because, you was just somebody's wife now. Because again, now I'm free. Now this young guy that I done left my husband and broke my family on, how about he go on? He don't want me no more. So, and my husband, he came, but he did try to talk to me. But again, I thought I was in love. And I know that was hard of my husband to watch me be in love with somebody else.
Okay.
I did get that.
Angie, do you think it was a rebound reaction with the other guy? You
I,
think it
I,
was like a rebound? What was that? Break that down for us, baby. We
I
trying to
think
understand.
I think for the infidelity, I'm not necessarily gonna say a rebound, Tracy, because again, my husband and I was fussing and fighting, and I didn't
Okay.
have any worth. I didn't feel valuable. I
Okay.
would felt like I was there just to make his dreams come true. That when I did find somebody that I felt like was attracted to me, that made me feel like and just made it all about Angie, just went all over about man, like kind of like the women in the suburbs, but they end up going or cheating with the pool guy or the milk.
Yes.
It was one of those situations. Somebody who is not even equal to what you already have, but
Yes.
you don't care. You're willing to risk it all because that feeling, that emotional feeling is what you crave. And if your love tank is empty, you will go out here out of desperation to anybody who feel it. And that's what I want to promote. I want women to get that feeling for themselves, not
Come
looking
on.
for somebody to give you that externally. Get that
I'm gonna let you talk about your program before we end the show. I want you to talk about that program because it's necessary. Now you said you was on the floor. Let's talk about on the floor. We can't pass or just pass over that. On
okay.
the floor. Tell us about the fight,
Okay.
Angie.
The fight happened. Like I said, I can't remember the details because he has his own scenario of it. He said, "Well, Angie, you was choking me, so I had to choke you back." And like I said, I don't remember that. And he is taller than I am. I'm 5'3". He like 5'7", 5'8". So you can have your own visualization of how strong my choke to his choke. But anyway, I remember passing out on the floor, and
Okay.
when I woke up, I remember hearing him pleading with God, God, just let her wake up. God, just let her wake up. And in the midst of that, that is what gave me my strength that I have to go. And it didn't matter where I went. I just have to get out of here because, again, either he was going to unlive me or I was
Mhm.
going to alive him because now I knew I could no longer, it wasn't safe for me anymore or
Yes.
my son.
Yes. I get that part. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. I hope y'all who are listening, y'all who are tuning in,
Yeah.
get this wisdom. that we speaking right now, because there are so many toxic relationships,
Very.
so many toxic marriages. Many of us are scared to leave because we scared to leave the image, the home, the cars. You didn't invested time with the person, and you like, what if somebody else get him, and everything that I built and worked up with him or with her, they get the rewards of it after I didn't build them up, or after I built it with them, baby, nothing is worth being unalived or unaliving someone and going to the penitentiary. Nothing is worth it. And if you feel yourself crossing that line, if you feel your blood boiling, your skin crawling, and your thoughts changing, because you can feel it coming. Believe me, I know. When you feel the shift in your emotional and mental state, and you start going to a dark and violent place, it is time to leave. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your belief is. It is time to save yourself. Figure it out later, but save yourself and get help.
Yes.
Get help. It's very, very important. Okay, so what everybody want to know, honey, they waiting to hear. Okay, how long did you stay separated? You said was it 4 or 10
Yeah.
years? What was it?
Yes, when I finally made the
10 years.
decision to leave, I went back to my mom's and stayed there for a while. But again, my father had got in some trouble, so I was able to go into his mobile home. And at that time, that's when like I said, I'm out here in the streets. You know what they say? I'm free. I'm outside.
Girl, you was outside for real, huh?
Uh,
Tell me
uh,
you was
um,
doing your sexy red piece on the
yeah,
gay side, baby.
exactly. I'm outside. So again, I met a guy that was older, and he began to ask me. He said, "Angie, you keep talking about everybody else. What do you want?" And when he asked me, Tracy, that is like the foundation that started me, and that's how I went to school to become a nurse. And I said, I just want to go to school. And he said, "Why don't you?" Everything that I would say, he would challenge me, like, "Go and make it happen. Go and do it." And I couldn't I understand, like, I was married to this man, and he had, it was like he wanted himself to be up. But then, I was in here, I was working behind the scenes to make these dreams come true for him. And he had more clout than I did. So anyway, that's how I became the nurse. So by the time the 10 years had, passed, him and we stayed friends because his mother raised our son once I decided to go back to school. So I worked at nighttime and went to school during the day. So his mother had retired. So he was worried about people, his son being in different places. So his mom said that she would keep him. So she took him at 7 years old, and he stayed with her. And by the time, I went through, seeing him, he was already in a relationship with other people. So now I have adjusted. But now, Trace, I'm a registered nurse, and I have income to match his income. So I don't need you to do anything for me. I can take care of myself. So when he called me back, during that 10-year stretch, like I said, online dating, all that other jazz of dating people, that's you I was meeting people that I had to build up, because again, I was thinking about the exchange. I didn't set any standards because I didn't know to set standards. I didn't know what to ask somebody to
Goals
come
and
to a
boundaries.
relationship for.
So you
Yes,
didn't have boundaries. Is that
I
what I'm hearing?
yes, I didn't have boundaries.
Okay. No boundaries,
No
no
boundaries.
standards.
No boundaries, no standard. And when people were coming to me, I was wondering, like, why am I attracting all these people? So I talked to a relationship coach, and I
Mhm.
met this man when I started. Like I said, I know I know God has called me to do something great, but I didn't know exactly what it was. Again, I started my organization of working with the youth after the separation. So once I, like I said, when that drug deal thing happened, when I was at back of the police car, because the police came when I had that online dating, when I met that guy and
Okay.
had drugs in my car. So he came, and when he put me in the back of his car, at the back of the police car, I could see the rearview mirror and the lights flashing, and all I could see and hear was God say, "If you love yourself, you wouldn't do this to yourself."
Mm.
And so it's silent, and I thought about my life flashed before my eyes with my mom. I was like, my dad already incarcerated. Here I am getting ready to go be incarcerated. And then I thought about my son that I had left while I was trying to go and, meet a man trying to belong. Cause like I said, I don't know how to operate on my own. So I didn't know what to look for. But needless to say, the police, and when I called Jesus, I said Jesus 3 times in the back of that car. Mysteriously, the door opened, and the police told me, he said, I want you to get out of here, over here in Atlanta. And he said, I never want to see you on this side of town. So by the time I stopped and I backed up, and that's when I seen the drugs in my car. And I threw the drugs out and I left. And that's when God gave me to start that organization. And I never want another woman to feel the emptiness that I felt. Like, Angie, you had all this. Now look at you. And so I felt like my husband had put like a black cloud on my head. Like, why? How come I can't maintain without him? I'm doing all these amazing things, but I don't feel worthy in love. And that's when I opened it up. So I had 36 young girls come through my program from middle school to their first and second year of college. That happened. And I got an award for being in that organization. And it was called Loving the Skin I'm in Regardless in
Okay.
Abbeville, South Carolina.
Okay, we're gonna get more into that. We're gonna get more into that. Now, this guy you met on this dating app,
Yeah.
you said that so he had put the drugs in your trunk, how put them in the car, like how much was it? What, like, was it some big weight, or was it just like a little bit of something? What was that?
No. This was when you remember that little it was the 800 number. So it wasn't necessarily the app, but the calling on the phone and you
Okay.
call and the people be on the other end. So that's what I did. You just be in love with a voice. And so at that time, I fell in love with I ain't gonna say I fell in love, but it felt good to have somebody to call and text you. So that's what he was doing.
Okay.
So I was in
So
South
he was
Carolina.
priming you. He was
Yeah,
priming.
exactly. So he was telling me, he said, well, when are you coming to Georgia? So I was like, my friend had just got married. So I was like,
And where was
okay,
you living at the time?
South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in South Carolina. So I ended up coming, drove to Georgia because my friend had gotten married. So while I was there, of course, I'm gonna text him like, hey, I'm in Georgia. He said, well, let's do a meet and greet. So again, you on this thing talking to people, and that's normally what what you do is you do a meet and greet if you in the area. So that's what I did. So the guy directed me exactly from Jonesboro Road, took me all the way. I don't even know what side of town it was, but it was somewhere near prison. And I now, since I'm telling the story, I guess I got a thing for being a prison babe because I almost been one. But needless to say, I went to see him. And when I went to see him, he stopped and we was on this dead end road. And he was, talking to me. We got out, walked around my car. He get my tag. I'm knowing now that he was getting my tag number, to make and model my car, prime me up like, when I'm gonna see you again, baby girl. How naive Tracey I was. So anyway, when we sat in the car, he went to get something from the back of a truck. And it was in like a duffel bag, like an army duffel bag, the green duffel bag that the guys used to bring home. And my dad was in the army, so I remember that duffel bag. And he put it in the car, and he still talked to the man outside in the truck. My intuition said that could be drugs, but Tracy, I talked myself out of it, thinking that can't possibly be it.
Yeah.
So I sat there like a sitting duck. And then when he got in the car, he said, hey, baby girl, I want you to take me down the street. Now, remember, this was a dead end. So I turned around, went back up that same road. A guy, he told me to stop. A guy jumped in the backside behind the seat. And now I noticed that all the pictures that he sent me had a white t-shirt on. Tracey, that's prison babe when they just have like a white tee on. That's the signature. But again, I was so naive.
Girl, how old were you?
Like I said, I'm in my 20s because
Yeah,
I done
20s,
separated.
girl, we think we got all the game. We game goofy. Yeah, game goofy, girl. I know.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I had all the game in my 20s. Just girl.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting up there, like I said. So I'm probably like 27, at the most. So needless to say, now that I look back, I see that's what was happening. In the background was some bricks. And I remember that even with him doing it, the other person got in the car. And when the other person got in the car, God Jesus sent the police. So, and I told the guy, I said, hey, that's the police behind me. He was like, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, yes, it is. Tracey, you would have thought my little Toyota Corolla
You was
had
in danger. You was in
what did I
danger and
do?
didn't even know it.
Didn't even know it. So them
Yeah.
guys jumped out my car, and they was out. So I remember
Did they
them
start
helping.
running? What happened?
Yeah, they ran. They ran. So
So
like
they
I said,
left you with the package.
yes, yes, exactly. And so again,
They
when the
had to answer to somebody.
it says exactly. So they left me. So the police came, and the police. But wait a minute, I left out the most important part. He told me to bring him some hamburgers. So I purchased like 10 to 13 cheeseburgers because I'm thinking that you know how guys be around and they had their boys with them. Again,
Oh yeah.
naive.
You was
The
doing too much.
hamburgers was the camouflage, the smell of this big old drug thing going on. So when I talked to other people who in that
In the
pharmaceutical,
game.
they was like,
Mm-hmm.
Angie, that is to cover the scent of the drugs, girl. Crazy.
Wow.
So when I say that my life, and I tell women, I know when you feel vulnerable and not knowing who you are and you don't have an identity. What they say, if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. Tracey, that was me.
Okay, what was the pivotal point when you began to start finding your own self-worth? And tell us some strategies. What did you do? Like, what when did the light bulb go off when you was like, I have to save myself and I have to do something different?
That
And when and that at that moment?
At that moment in the back of the police car, because I couldn't get out. I was trapped. I mean, it's no handles. You can't let yourself in and out the police car and once you
Uh,
in the back.
once
So
you in the
once
back, they
I
gotta
got in the
let you out, or somebody
exactly.
somebody gotta run past you and
Yeah.
open the door.
So exactly. So the police was on side the car, and that's when somebody called emergency, and he said, "Hey, I got to leave, but don't never let me catch your ass come back around here." So I knew that had to be God because he put me in. Tracey, he never did search the car because he would have seen that big duffel bag knee deep of marijuana in the bag. I didn't know it at the time. I only know it was marijuana once he let me out. Cause my car was a straight shift, but
Okay.
he wouldn't let me put my shoes on, so he made me walk on gravel to get in the police car. So I had to walk on gravel to get back to the car. And as I was pulling out that dead end, that's when I looked over my shoulder and I like, oh, there's bag in my car. And of course, I'm wondering what it is. So when I got to the top of the dead end, I pulled over and I just I called a guy. I called a guy because all I had his first name, and I just think his name was Jay or James or something. But then, like, why would you do that to me? I got a child, and all he would say is, "I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm sorry." So I remember I dropped the drugs off right there on that corner. And Tracy, when I looked out my review, that's when it hit the ground, it burst. And that's when I think like pine needle sticking out. So that let me know that it was marijuana. And the guy, like I said, other people who in that business, they were like, Angie, and it looked like somebody had put some shoes in there, and they were like, Angie, that was guns. That's why it looked like so knotted up in the bag. So,
Wow.
yes.
So yeah, you definitely yeah, that was definitely an act of God.
Yes.
That was an act of God. So
Yes.
somewhere in there, your soul was doing a lot of searching. You were searching for yourself,
yes.
and a lot of times we think we're aware of what it is that we want, right? On a soul level, our soul is screaming out. And then we got our guardian angels. And then we got our spirit team. And everybody on that realm looking out for us, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times we moving through this thing on this dimension, not knowing having direction.
Yeah.
And they will definitely redirect us. And that was your redirection, redefining moment in that moment. And I'm so glad you was, thank you for being transparent and sharing your beautiful story. Because it's a beautiful story to me. It's it is. And you got some people, they're gonna be listening to this, and they're gonna be like, y'all, I know when y'all listening right now, I know you're listening, honey. You like, well, damn. You see it, huh? Nurse Angie. She went from that to this, right? So tell us, that was the pivotal moment.
Yeah.
What did you do to start strengthening and increasing your self-worth, your value, and your self-love? Because see, that's what that was all about.
Okay.
That was a lack of self-love, value, and self-worth. What did you do? How did you change? What strategies did you begin to implement?
Yeah, I come from a family of preachers and ministers in there. So my mom, I mean my aunties, all on my father's side is ministers, preachers, evangelists. So I knew how to pray. I just didn't have a relationship with God at the time. And by the time and that's the reason why when I was at the back, trapped in the back of the police car, I remember my aunt saying, "If you call Jesus, but say it in a sequence of 3." And I remember saying it with authority. And that's when that door of the police car opened. So I know that God looked out for Angie. So once that happened, and then again, when I had that revelation of looking in that mirror with the police car, and I was like, God was like, okay, you right here. But if you loved yourself, Angie, you wouldn't have put yourself in harm's way. And so that's when I started, like I said, and when he said love yourself, that's the reason why I named my organization that. So that's the reason why I started that self journey of giving these girls what I have instead of looking for a man to give it to me. I went to other young girls who couldn't do nothing but love me because they didn't have anything to give me. So remember, I talk about the exchange because that is where I feel women fall victim to, because they looking for an exchange, no matter if it's money, no matter if it's house, cars, material things, a job, a promotion. Everybody looking for a change and have a motive to why they doing what they're doing for you. Very rare do you find somebody who genuinely want to see you win, or who genuinely, want to see you excel.
Yes.
So those are the reason why the word exchange. I hope people take that to say, what am I right now in my situation? What am I exchanging myself for? Am I on the phone too long talking to people? Am I exchanging all my energy and I'm listening to them, but they're not there for me. Like, some of us are good friends, or and other people are not good friends to us. So it's an exchange.
Okay, I heard prayer. What
Pray.
else? What are some other strategies?
So from prayer, and then I started doing the soul searching, and that's when I plug in. Because if you're gonna take something away, that again
You got to
insecurities,
replace it.
you
You
got
got
to
to replace
replace
it.
it exactly.
Yes.
So the repossession came is I took out a man and trying to belong and get on these apps and phones, and I replaced that time with these young girls.
Oh.
So these young girls,
You started building community with
yes,
other women, other
yes,
girls,
other young girls, those
and
young
you
girls.
start seeing the mirror. You
Exactly.
start identifying, and so in helping them to create better, you was creating better for yourself.
I knew they loved me, Tracey. Again, I'm talking about the exchange. I
Come on.
knew that once I gave them, they were loving me genuinely. They didn't know no other way to give me anything. So the only thing they could give me is by coming to whatever events that I had, by
Right.
showing up to. So I took what had happened to me, I turned it around, and I made sure I exposed these young girls to in the hood, those are where your best survivors are. They
Honey,
already know
don't
what
I know?
they
I'm here to
already know
tell the
what.
story and
Yeah,
bring the other hood girls to
yeah.
tell
So
the story.
they already know about their lights getting cut off. They already know survival mode because they live in that. So
Yes.
you talking to somebody that I haven't experienced. So with those girls, when they come and share their hardships with me, and that was a way of life to them. And I know that guess what? Some predator is out there riding around in that neighborhood
Yes.
with that nice car, with that money, being a drug dealer or whatever. He's seeing her with a nice body and potential to be great. He gonna come and shower because he know her mom need help. He know her
Yep.
mom can't make rent. So he gonna go ahead and pimp her out. So
Mm-hmm.
I go ahead and I expose the girls to it early. I'm telling them about STDs. I'm telling them about their body. I'm telling them about sports. I didn't know anything about being a black nurse. I never really saw one. And when I'm saying that, not saying that I was, I'm talking about in my close circle to say,
In the
hey, I want
community.
to be like you.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. So I let them see what a black nurse look like. What is the income of a black nurse? Let them know the possibility that you don't have to settle for right here in the hood, in a trailer park, in the projects. doing this. You still can be able to expose yourself. Use your brain. Your book sense can get you out. So I took them girls to dinner. I want them to know how to order off a menu at a restaurant, not just McDonald's. And a lot of them did. Tracey, they didn't know how to order.
That was their
I mean,
first time even experiencing anything
yes,
like that.
yes. So I gave them life skills that we take for granted. I told
Okay.
them. Mm-hmm.
So what I hear, prayer, and I heard you helping the youth, but I also heard you going to nursing school. I
Yes.
think nursing school mindset
Mm-hmm.
so much. The fact that you was like, I'm really doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really came from this, and I'm about to be a nurse. Like, and it obviously is something you love. You loved it. You love being, because a nurse has to have compassion and has to be have a healing spirit and want to help others. And that's what I
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that because even though I was going to school, I still again nurses. So I don't know what that climate looked like because
okay.
I was just proud of going to school to stick out with something. That was my biggest thing, that I finally did something on my own, and I without my husband, ex-husband, and now I'm making my
Right.
own
So you don't
identity.
think
So
education
that's
changed your mindset?
Yeah, well, I don't say education did, but Tracey, think about it. I still, even though I was going to school, I still was staying in the trailer park. So
Gotcha.
I still had the same kind of friends. So nothing didn't change for me until after I started doing travel nursing.
Okay.
Travel nursing really exposed me to everything else because again, it's just like you going to church. But guess what? At the end, when you get out of church, you still go back and
Oh,
you
I
still smoke your
understand.
cigarettes or
I
play your
understand all
guitar.
too well.
It's-
Baby, let me tell you, I was going to college. Okay. Going to college. And I remember saying a prayer every day. I say,
yeah,
God, protect my home and protect my family and don't let the police kick in the door. Because I got to do
yeah,
this in order to provide for my
hmm
children, my 4 children.
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
and I made a pact, I made a contract with God. I said, if you
yeah,
protect me until I get through college in order so that I can change our whole trajectory of life and get us up out this hood. Protect me and don't let these police kick in this door. I promise
yeah.
you, I will put it all down. I will put it all down. Just protect me. That I kept that promise.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of like playing
Yeah.
Russian roulette. So even though you know where you going, you ain't quite got there yet. So it still hasn't been transparent or penetrate your brain yet. So even though I'm going to nursing school, but some of those girls in nursing school, they got stories just like me. Some of my friends, they was getting jumped on just like me. So my environment's no different.
Okay.
Only until I started travel nursing
Okay.
and I started seeing, hey, these women don't look like me. It's very rare that I seen black. Sometimes I'm the only us that's there. So I had to change the trajectory of my life. I had to change how I talk, because what is coming to us, when I told my doctor that, I've been with my husband since I was 15, he said I would have had him locked up. Tracy, only then did I realize my husband could have went to jail
Yeah.
for messing with.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So that's what I'm saying. So when you live in that, you don't know it's wrong until somebody come and point it out to you that this was dysfunctional.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. All right. The $1,000,000 question. You divorced Mr. Lee.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Lee,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Lee, something else, baby. Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee. Shout out, Mr. Lee. I'm talking about you right now, baby. Mr. Lee. Angie love you, honey, because she came back. What was that? Why spin the block? Why get remarried after all of that? And what had changed to make
Okay.
you step back? Because I
Okay.
can't even say back. What changed when you stepped forward now in this new level of life, new identity, you know what I'm saying? New social surroundings, you didn't seen some things, you got some things, you holding your own, you sure about yourself, you got some boundaries, some clarity, some standards.
Mm-hmm.
Why spin the block with Mr. Lee?
Okay, before we get that part, I was in another relationship, but I went on a private sabbatical because I felt like that I needed to do some soul search because I didn't want to keep plugging men in. I'm getting older and I just didn't want to keep living my life that way. So I went on a private sabbatical, and during that private sabbatical, and I'm talking about I'm reading the Bible. At midnight, your girl was somewhere praying. I'm reading the Bible. I had me a prayer partner, so we was consistent, working out. So once I got my mental clarity, I relocated to California. So even when I went to California, at that time, Mr. Lee he was engaged and had a ring on another young lady's finger. So I'm not thinking about him. I'm good. I'm grand, and life is great for me. I get to California, and I remember that was sleeping on the air mattress because as a travel nurse, you don't want too much, furniture and stuff because you don't know how long you're gonna be there till you go to your next one.
Yes.
But I got to California and I loved it. So they told me like, hey, if you want to stay here, you have to go back to school and get this class in order to get permanent California license. So that's what I did. I get that. And then out the blue at the end of 2016. So life good for me. Trace, I go to the BET Awards. People really seeing like Angie doing some big things out there. So I started blogging. And, my name catching wind and people keep talking about what Angie doing? So again, they telling him though, and then that causes the girlfriend. The girlfriend watching my page too. So the girlfriend was letting him know, hey, I like Angie movement, or however she said it to him. So she put me back on his radar. He looking at, wait a minute, I'm getting ready to marry her, but she talking about my ex-wife. But again, I kept it, moving, still out there doing my thing with celebrities. And Tracy, December on New Year's Eve 2016, he called me and he said, hey, I'm coming to California to get my wife, in a joking way. Nah, bro, you ain't coming to California to get your wife because you don't have no wife here. So, I don't know like what's going on with her, but the call came out the blue and I thought he was blocked because I did block him because me and him had a bad argument because again, people were talking and bragging on me and he was the one that could, the same mouth that can build you up that you would love to hear a compliment from.
Yes.
He was already throwing me down, even all these accomplishments that I had did. Tracy, he still couldn't see no value in them. He still had a way to keep jabbing. So I blocked them. And our son had came to California and he unblocked them. And he said, Daddy, when you come to California, to see us. And he said, I don't have nothing in California, but you have to be careful of your words, Tracy. Because not even 30 days later, he he on a flight, then came to California in order to confess his love. And Andrew, I want to get my wife back.
So, in what ways did Mr. Lee change? Because we hear a lot of change coming from you. You've changed. You built your image. You've taken on a new life in California. You have an identity. You're feeling real good. I can feel it because I already know I'm from California originally, and I know the breeze.
Okay.
I know the beach, baby. I know the sun. Yes,
exactly.
I know that California living and loving, baby. So
exactly.
you was doing it.
Yes.
So what had changed about Mr. Lee?
So
Because see, before Mr. Lee was controlling and domineering and wanted, you to be for him, and he was going, train you up as such. So what had changed about Mr. Lee? Because see, now you a whole new woman.
I'm a whole new woman.
The same energy.
Exactly. So when he called me and he was in a down place because he had went to some changes on his job, and he was just calling me, down and out. But Tracy, one thing about a man, they know where they help come from. And he know I was a person that was non-judgmental, so he knew he could be transparent on what his situation was. He didn't have to tell me that he needed help. He didn't have to tell me that he was in a, bad place.
And plus you were still connected. Y'all got a blood covenant. You got a child.
Been whatever from his job, and he was moping around or whatever. So when he was talking to me, I'm being the motivational Angie that I am, because at that time I was pushing the metamorphosis coach. So I was telling everybody, I help you change your dreams into reality. And so that's what I was doing. And positive affirmations, I'm on it. So when he called me in a bad place, I'm cheering him up, and I'm helping him get it, because again, he wore glasses all the time. So I said, hey, have you thought about making your own glasses? Because he worried about this job they had and, put him on termination or separation or whatever. I said, what about getting your own? And Tracy, all I was doing what I normally do anyway. So when he kept calling, and then he was giving me his break schedule, but the changes that he made after I had talked to his mom, and I asked his mom, like, hey, Demetrius keep calling me, talking about getting back with him. I said, what you think? She said, well, Angie, I don't know. He's still talking to that girl, so I don't want you to get your hopes up. And at that time, I'm not getting the hopes up, because Tracy, I don't want to leave California anyway. So he was going to church, and he would call me about church. I'm like, wait a minute. This man here didn't talk about no church when I was with him. And so he kept, he was calling, and then I told him, I said, well, hey, telling him about what to say to the pastor, and he would trust what I say and try to go and do it. So he said, the pastor asked him, since you and your ex-wife so close, have you ever thought about getting back with her? And again, at that time, of course, he was saying no, but, God has a sense of humor, because I'm saying no, and Tracy, everything I was
Girl,
asking.
wait, back that on up. I hope y'all heard that. God, comedian.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. God is a comedian. It's so many moments in times I have to look back and I have to just laugh at myself. If you can't laugh at yourself, and what you think isn't, and what you think isn't, still isn't. Just be clear. Okay? So come on, baby, because you said God and the humor. The humor of this thing here. All right.
Yeah, so cause when he was calling me, and like I said, at first he was saying that he was just kidding. That's how it initially started. He was just kidding. He was just enjoying. He was, like I said, he was sad about his job. But the more that he was talking to me, then he started giving me his break schedule. And then, of course, like I said, we talking about, how to talk to the pastor or whatever. And because I was well known in the community, because I was doing things in the community, I wrote him a letter or recommendation, for his job. So I'm thinking, like, I'm your ex-wife. Here you are asking me, but again, I took on my own identity. So Tracy, I knew I was in a good place. But needless to say, Tracy, I was lonely. And I was praying, like, God, when is somebody going to come for me? And that's when, since I was in California, I was in Fresno to be exact, it wasn't that many black people out there, or even though they looked black, they were not black.
So
they were like Somalian. Exactly. So because of that, I'm coming from a small town in South Carolina, less than 5,000. So everything I'm experiencing, Trace, I'm experiencing on my own. So when he came back, and I remember, going to work, and this lady said, well, Angie, she said, have you ever thought about interracial dating? I was like, no, since I'm here, let me.
It's a lot of that in California.
Yeah. So let me out. So I was open to doing it. And even when I was open to doing that, I just remember there was another online thing called Coffee Meet Bagel, where black women being the coffee and the bagel being whatever other nationality they not, but none black. So I was open to it. But Tracy, the man talked to me so horrible, and but I was thinking, like, how in the...
Well, what ethnicity was?
I want to say he was like Italian or something, because we just talked on the telephone. I never did see a picture of him.
Okay.
Because when we talked, it was like a echoing in the background. And again, as a woman, we live for those lonely women. We live for a notification, a good morning text. So I was addicted to those, Tracy. So again, I'm back out here, even though I'm not on the 1-800 number. Now I'm back
on the West Coast outside.
On the West Coast, still taking the same issues from South Carolina back over here to East Coast. So I knew I could not do all that stuff, because now I'm a nurse, and now I done seen something. So I had to have a little decorum about myself.
And some discretion, honey. Because that nursing, it's a whole lot you can't do with that nursing life.
Yes. And so then, but I was meeting men's, they was like, I met an Ethiopian, and he was a resident. So Tracy, I'm thinking, like, ooh, I'm getting it big. I got me a chance to talk to a resident. Tracy, he would just want somewhere to stay. He just, kept
calling green cards, girl. They need somebody to help them out with the immigration.
Yeah, it's Trace. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah,
So that's
girl,
what
and they pay well too. But that's a
so that's
whole nother show.
so exactly. So that's what I'm telling you. When you don't know and you naive, Tracy, you just want somebody,
Yes.
but you don't know all these other stipulations you need to be looking for. So again, my ex-husband was, calling, and I was like, I'm getting tired of this. And so I
And
remember,
there's familiarity there.
yes, and so
Mhm.
I'm talking to him, but it took him like 3 months before I actually realized, because he had planned it out. He said, Angie, we'll get married on the same day we initially did, which is July the 3rd, 1999, and we got married again July the 3rd, 2017.
Okay, cause see, you need to skip some steps. See, because
Okay.
me and the peoples
Hmm.
need to know
Hmm.
why again. Okay, you said you was lonely. You say you
Okay.
went out
Yes. Yeah.
and national dating pool. It didn't
Yeah.
work. Look,
So, uh-huh.
what had changed about Mr. Lee? And hold on, let me say this real quick for my brothers out there. Shout out to Mr. Lee because he did some work. He did some work. That's all I don't know what we try to get to it now with Angie, but she could tell us what work he did because Mr. Lee did some work, honey. Because she you gotta understand, she's at another level of her life. She's feeling good. She got some value. She got some identity. But she's still searching for herself, and she still wants some companionship. She done went
Period.
out there. You done went out there and tried the international dangalang. It wasn't working. So now Mr. Lee just sitting there in the cut like a real G, saying he about to get his wife. What changes did Mr. Lee make that was very visible that you felt like it was
Okay.
heartfelt to make you even change your even rethink, you know, going back and doing this again with in remarrying the man you had divorced? Come on, let's
Okay.
get
When I said that we was talking on the telephone, and I told you when we would get off, I would pray and ask God, like, God, I don't want it to be him. Trace, I'm in California. Why would I want to go back and get somebody over there? I'm telling God, like, no, bro, this can't be happening. What you doing to your girl? God, man, I thought you done had me to say I done been without sex. When I say no sex, Trace, I'm saying I sold sex toys when him and I first separated. So it wasn't no masturbation, nothing. God, I gave all this up for you, and then you gonna send me this man back, Tracy? I told God no. But every time I would say no, God, I told God, whoever he have, they would want to come. Remember, I'm high commodity now, so people want to know who Angie is, and
yeah.
everybody would say, "Send for me, send for me." I ain't never been to California, so Tracy, everybody wanted me to do for them. When
Oh,
Demetrius called, Demetrius said, after once we have established that, he was calling, he was talking serious, and then he said, "Well, I tell you what, Angie, I'm gonna come and we'll meet in Vegas." I like, huh? I said, wait a minute, I've been practicing celibacy I'm on this journey. I'm not being alone with a man, putting myself in harm's way. He said, well, I tell you what, if you felt comfortable, call my daughter. I have a stepdaughter. He said,
mm-hmm.
call her. And I said, yeah, if Keita come, then I'll show up. So that's what we did. We met in Vegas for our first date. And with my stepdaughter, which is by his biological daughter.
Okay.
So everything I was asking for when he came, he was a gentleman. He wasn't asking me what to do. I also prayed, God, whoever you have to come, let them be comfortable with sleeping on this air mattress without them touching me or even engaging in touching me. So
Okay.
when he did come back to California, because he had came out for Vegas. So then Tracy, he enjoyed me so much, he flew back to California for a weekend. So when he flew back, he slept on the air mattress and he had his back turned to me. So that's when I'm saying, and he was going to church, so we was having like Bible study as well. So when I did come to church with him, one of the deacons came and they say, I think this is for you. And they gave me a picture of him getting baptized. That deacon did not know. Only that taught me and God knew. God knew what I had prayed for. I knew I wanted a man that had been redeemed, who had a relationship with God. Not just tell me about it. The old Demetrius didn't go to church. The old Demetrius didn't have no relationship with God. Now Tracy, he reads the Bible. And I also made sure that he read personal development books. Because remember, I'm
Okay.
doing coaching. I'm with Lisa Nichols and everything. So I made sure, like, hey, you trying to talk to me, I'm about business and entrepreneurship. You have to read this book. I gave him at least 2 books. The first one was Think and Grow Rich, and then the other one was 10 Distinctions Between Millionaire and Middle Class by Keith. I don't know what Keith's last name is, but I said everybody needed it. Was a $10 book.
Mm-hmm.
I purchased the book and I bought it on Amazon and sent it to him. And that's when he read that book and came back and recited what he had read. And then he read he did the audible of the Think and Grow Rich. And then he got his mama a copy. So Tracey, those are the things. I had boundaries. Cause I knew if you didn't understand business and the
Yeah, you
mindset
have
I had
standards
now,
now. Mm-hmm. You
yeah.
have
So I
standards.
knew
Yes.
it was gonna be tug of war. If I'm trying to do all these amazing things, you was gonna bring me down and have me thinking just a 9 to 5 was enough. And no, Tracy, it's not enough. And so, that is the things that we made. So again, it took him to March for me to realize that I was getting married in July. So I purchased my dress. It was like it was on sale at David Bridal. I transported it in my car, so I bought it David's Bridal in California, and
Uh-huh.
when the people came back to transport my car, the dress came with it. So that's how that all happened.
Transported where?
To South Carolina, cause now I done relocated.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Lee do this 360.
Mm-hmm.
He going to church. He doing his own soul searching.
Mm-hmm.
He getting a personal relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously seeing a lot of the errors of his ways
Mm-hmm.
to where you didn't feel respected, you didn't feel valued, you didn't feel loved. And he recognized how what I'm seeing, and I'm not speaking for him. Let's be clear, but it seems like he may have recognized, what who you are now, and how he may have, because of his changes. Now he wanted to also be, connected with you again, right? Was there any struggle with the new Angie and what he knew before? What
Yeah.
what happened in those moments? Because I know there had to be moments where it was like,
And it's
that's
still and they still are moments
come
because
on, let's talk about
that's still we
what
still
moments pop out for you that
the
you have to like
because
course correction.
because I'm very independent. I didn't know anything about trying to, ask him a question or, having to go over with your mate before I make an action. If I wanted, it was coming home with me, and again, I was a travel nurse. I didn't want anybody to come and change me. And again, by the time, we got married and I moved to South Carolina, I knew I didn't want to just stay there. So even, he didn't want to leave his dream house. We built that house, from the ground. But Tracey, he ended up, considering like moving us over to Georgia because those were one of the things that I told him. I didn't want to come back to South Carolina to live. And we lived for a little while, but again, I transitioned to Georgia. So those things, walking away from something that he know and love to be able to chase dreams over here with me, we left a house that we built from the ground to come and stay in an apartment because this economy ended up being bad and things didn't plan out like how we wanted. So those things were issues that I'm thinking like, oh my God, this man walked away from, his house, his dream house. And now, look at us and things are not like how we are, we planned it in. We butt heads because again, me being an independent woman, I'm like an alpha male. An alpha female. He's an alpha
Mhm.
male. Learning how to be submissive, learning how to be quiet because Tracey, it was easy for me to tell him, I don't need you, right? And I was notorious for saying that. I went to a women retreat, and majority of them are married. And the lady, shout out to Cynthia Rosman, who's the elder of this retreat. She, when you have your one-on-one with her, and I would tell her some of the things that I was doing, and she would check me. And I'm thinking like, she don't know who I am. I'm Angie. And she was like, Angie, you gonna have to learn that if the world already beating your man up, you sending him back out the door to be beat up some more. And when he come home, you beating him up. So Tracey, once she started helping me identify my communication skills with him, and I realized that's where majority of successful women that
Okay.
make more money. Well, I ain't gonna say I make more money than him. I'm saying we got even playing field with income now that you ain't gonna talk no stuff to me and you thought I was gonna just lay there, bro. That ain't gonna happen.
Okay. Okay. So, what are some things that you and your husband incorporate now into the marriage that are different considering how things were before? What are some things that you incorporate now to making it work? What are some what are you doing to stick and stay? What's giving you that stick and stay power now?
Okay. Now we have surrounded ourselves with healthy couples. When we first got to Georgia, we attended the married walk and with Martell them. and we went to see other healthy couples because we didn't have friends that was in a healthy marriage. Having and being surrounded by people that's in a healthy marriage or helping mind space. Then I did go to therapy. As far as for me, because I had to deal with the sexual molestation because I had issues with him touching me. And again, because again, remember we used to fight. Now Tracey, your girl, I wouldn't dare take any of that. And y'all, don't you think I hadn't tested him now because I want to let him know, bro, I'm not gonna sleep on you and let you think that young girl is gonna sit there and do. But Tracey, he don't. He'll check me. He was like, Angie, you still remember me from back in the day. I told you I don't do that. I don't do all that talking and fussing and arguing with it. You said it one time, we let it go. But as a woman, you gonna hear me till I get the thought out. I don't care about you. So being able to learn how to communicate, that's a work in progress. We do church on Sunday. Once we, do church, we go work out together. A lot of things that we do together, and then we don't have really like separate friends. Before Tracey, he went by himself, I went by myself, or I stayed at home and he was the one out.
That's
Now,
a big one.
yeah,
That's a big one.
yes,
That's a big one. You need to have fewer separate friends, I recognize, if you are married. You need to have fewer separate friends. Your friends, and that's why it's so hard to find your identity after leaving a marriage, because your whole identity is inclusive to the union and the friends and the social circles and all of that. So yeah, but that is definitely a part of it. You do need to have a few autonomous friends, just a few, but you can't have more autonomous friends versus married couples, married
exactly.
friends.
And learn how to compromise. Demetrius know I love events. You see me at the podcast summit. He know I love events, and he's not like I am about business and entrepreneurship. So he don't try to knock me. He know if I spend money, that's where my money's going. He, pretty much like a lounge. He used to do cigars, but God done took that taste from him, so he's not no longer smoking. So being able to help him through that journey, that was a transition. Being able to help him identify the reason why, on this health and wellness journey. Tracey, for a man to not have a whole full dinner, I don't cook. He does all the cooking. And it's some things that it's compromise that I was like, oh God. When I see a woman and she got like a perfect gentleman, I was like, oh, my husband don't do that. But then I had to look at the other things that Demetrius does do right that
Right.
other people don't have. So being able to, identify your relationship, what makes you perfect.
Yes.
Don't try to identify,
Don't compare. You
exactly.
cannot compare. That's just like you
Yeah,
can't compare your identity. You can't
exactly.
compare your marriage. You can't compare your relationships. Do
Yes.
not compare. Because, like you said, there are things about your husband that you recognize that you love that's just for you. There's
Mhm.
something that you appreciate that, someone else's husband may not do. So yeah, we have to really look at the positives and not always focus on the negatives, because we all are work in progress,
Mhm.
even in the marriage.
In the marriage, every day.
Yes, yes.
One day you can love them, and the next minute, like, oh my God, I can't stand them. But I also,
That go with marriage though. It's
exactly,
ebb and a flow.
exactly.
Some days you all in love, and the next day you don't even want to look at them, or you
That's
don't
the
even
part that
want
don't nobody tell you though,
to.
Tracey.
Yeah,
You look at
they don't.
social,
They do not share that. You are so right,
you
girl.
on
Talk
social
about.
media. Yeah, you
We
on
don't
social
get
media,
that
and you,
conversation.
yeah,
We don't get the real conversation. We get the, oh, it's all, it feel good, and you with somebody, you got the companionship, and you have to think about them times when the passion is gone. What
it,
about when the passion is gone and the sex
that,
ain't that hot no more?
yeah,
There's gonna be moments, I'm just keeping it 100. There's gonna be moments where you're not gonna feel like it. You're not gonna feel him. He's not gonna feel you. There's going to be moments. Those aren't the moments though when you say, okay, we're done. What we go, let's split up. Those are the moments you go get help. Those
yeah,
are the moments you go search what's really going on. Those are the moments that you need to have. You need to communicate. You need to start talking. You need to start sharing. You know what I'm saying? So now my question to you, did you and Mr. Lee go through marriage counseling and have both of you been in and out of therapy separately and together?
No, we both did it separately. Like I said, he had a pastor in South Carolina, and I had already had my pastor that I was church I was going to over in California. So again, once we got married, my auntie, married us, and she did have like a talking to, right there at that marriage, at that session when we went ahead to ask her, and she had to make sure like No, it wasn't nothing that we was, of course, forced. We was in our 40s,
Okay.
so wasn't nothing forced though. But being able to, and again, you had to look at the dynamic. The age made a difference. In our 20s, what's important, sex is high on the list. In your later 40s and 50s, which is where him and I are, those things are, you need to have those kind of conversations and meet
Yes.
age appropriate people who understand health issues, blood pressure. Baby, if you got some issues, medication will make JoJo not get up to beat, King Kong. So
Yeah.
those conversations, and again, I'm saying health issues because I have a health issue. He had to be able to dynamic, like what's gonna go on with perimenopause and menopause. He
Come
having
on.
to learn fibroids, because his ex already had experienced them when he came with me and I experienced them. He was like, Angie, I can't watch you be in pain like this. So certain things, it has to be part of your journey. The divorce had to happen, and I tell my son, my biggest thing is regretting it, to my son, but being able for my son to see both of his parents, because we living off our son prayers. Our son walked us down
Mm.
the aisle. We had a wedding party with 13 people the first time. Tracy wasn't anybody there. It was less than 50 people, just intimate family and friends, no wedding party. Because now I knew the benefit of people and who being
Yes.
for you and against you. So again, the mindset you have in your 20s is totally different here at 48. The lifestyle is different and what I want in life. You want to know at the end of the day, if you were to have health issues, is this person going to be there to be able to change your diaper? Those need to be conversation that if you no longer talk, is this person can make the best communication decision for you? Those are
Ooh,
what those are
girl, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show. Health in marriage. Health in marriage, babe. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. Angie, let's talk about your son.
yes.
All right. He had two mamas,
Mm-hmm.
maybe three.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why? He had young Angie,
Uh-huh.
who was trying to find her way.
Mm-hmm.
He had Angie
Mm-hmm.
finding her way and doing a soul search and getting herself together. Then he had Angie, who was sure about herself, had her identity. You know what I'm saying? Living in sunny California.
Mm-hmm.
Now, daddy back.
Did it back.
First, let's talk about your son's transition and how's he doing? How did he do with that, and how's he doing?
My son doing well with, because like I said, even as because we separated when he was 7.
Okay.
So maybe he was, no, I think he was 3. He was 3 when we separated. And every time he would always, when he see other family, he would say, I want a family. And when especially like PTO or school, that's what he used to say. So his grandmother would call me, Angie, this boy still talking about he want a family. So I remember taking him to football practice and he would say, Mama, he could be my daddy, talking about the coaches, or anytime he see anybody acting, interacting with children. And
Yeah.
so, Tracy, that's where some of the fair relationships that I got, or I stayed in relationships a little longer because I was trying to give my son what he so desperately wanted. But again,
Right.
you can't make these jokers be whatever they want to be, because again, they come in the kid's life. They don't have no kind of relationship. I thought just because the relationship ended that they were gonna still stay in the connection and relationship with him, but they didn't. So that was hurtful. And I mean, even when with my husband now, I told him reach out to his ex fiance child, because that you've been in that guy's life so long. That's he a young man, he know you. Don't do that.
Yes.
Birthdays, make sure you get him some. So that's what kind of woman I am, because I know what it felt like that these men that I had allowed came in my house, and then you walking by my son like you don't know him. Man, you was just having eat my son's Fruit Loops and Cheerios. Don't do that. So again,
Right.
it taught me, very different standards. But again, he did ask me. He said, "Mama, you sure you're not moving too fast?" Right when I think it's on the wedding day to be exact. And I was like, "No." So time my husband and I get into it, he'll bring that conversation up. He's like, "Mama, remember I asked you?" And so and I know he's extremely happy because the little boy in him still crave for his dad. And me and Demetrius have to
That's so powerful.
Big Demetrius have to check ourselves, because things that we felt like our son should know at 26, he don't know because he was raised by, his elderly grandparents. So, we weren't there to give it to him. So that's what a good thing is now, that having him over in Georgia with us, being able to look at and help him, learn his way, like, help him navigate a job, And again, because
Mhm.
I didn't have any man, I just gave him money freely. That when Demetrius, when we got back together, he was like, "No, their purse strings cut. He gonna
Yeah, you
find
got to earn this.
he got
Yes.
yes." So those kind of dynamics, and like
Yes.
I said, those things a woman can't teach a man to be a man. So, and again, certain things that by us being back together, I can see an influence that my son is gonna be an awesome dad whenever he do become one, because he's seeing the dynamic of a family.
This is so powerful. This is just so powerful how God restored your family.
Oh, we
Like this is so much bigger. I know
definitely
we was on here clowning and laughing and all of that, but really and truly, how God was able to work through you and Big Demetrius and Mr. Lee and the baby,
and
your son, who's a grown man now, was
yeah,
young adult,
yeah.
work through all of y'all to restore your family and bring it back together. And I want to commend you and Mr. Lee. Okay, what are some strategies and advice you give a married couple right now who are considering pulling the trigger on divorce?
Pulling the trigger on divorce. Even in the Bible, it says separate for a season. So separating for a season, don't go looking for external to replace an inside job. That's what happened to me. I should have went ahead and let my husband know that I heard him on that phone with that young lady, and that's what made me pull the trigger, because I thought him and her was messing around. I didn't know that it was conversation or whatever. He shouldn't have been doing it anyway, but we wasn't married. But I wouldn't have gotten married. I should have let him know where my feelings were. I was wrong for keeping it from him and causing him all this agony getting married when he was ready for marriage, but I was totally not there. So being able to, number one, help yourself identify y'all feelings. Number two, being able to say, I'm okay with who I am. Where you are right now, what are you willing to compromise? And if you're not willing to compromise, then is leaving the only example that you have, because you're going to want to meet somebody else. And if you don't fix those small little issues now, you're going to carry it into another relationship,
Uh-huh.
and divorce is going to happen again. So being able to, before you go ahead and finalize things, because I remember that day in a divorce court. I remember how love turned to hate. I remember going back and saying all kind of ugly things, and now look at us. So being able to look at yourself, look at your mate, and say, talk to people you can confide in that doesn't have a say in it, which means not your mom or somebody close, because even though you have patched up, they still gonna remember what they did to you back then, even when
Yes.
you forgave them.
Yes.
So
How
watch
did
who you.
your family react? Let me go there real quick. How did
Yeah.
your family react when you said you was remarrying
Well, again,
Mr. Lee?
yeah, again, because our son was close with both our parents, and my mom, went up there to visit my son, when I was in California. So everybody still was close. My Demetrius was still calling my mom, still calling her mother-in-law, and even his brother was still calling me sister-in-law. And I still had a direct line with his mom because
Okay.
she raised our son. So everybody was still already together. We were just separated. Now everybody just back together again. And again, Demetrius and I had been together so many years. So it's kind of like that's what we knew. And that's who we know. So nobody didn't, say anything. Even my father, when he was incarcerated, the only thing they were worried about was, Angie, don't allow him to put his hands on you, being able to identify. And again, Tracey over my unalive body. No
Yeah.
man will ever put their hands on me. And that just, again, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
Are you happy? That's what I
I
want to know.
am.
Are you happy?
I am happy that, again, certain things, a little work in progress. Like I told him, I want him to be that gentleman that open the door. He said, Angie, I don't open the door all the time now. So we're still working on that part.
Okay. It sounds like Mr. Lee is happy too. I'll
Yeah.
be glad. I'll be happy to get Mr. Lee over here.
I
Miss
had
Pat,
you, Trace,
baby,
I promise you, you need to get him
we
on.
got to get Mr. Lee over here, but I got to talk to the G, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, that's
Baby,
right.
he went and got his wife. He went and did a whole 360 and got his wife back. It ain't no more gangster than that. Got his whole family back, Mr. Lee. Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Tell us about your program.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say really I don't necessarily like have a program, but the
Okay,
only thing that I'm doing now is detoxification is what I love. I
come
mostly
on.
help people detox, their mind, body, and spirit, just helping you identify things that we're doing because as we aging, you facing something different. Perimenopause is a thing, and I'm currently battling it with inflammation, weight up
Mhm.
and down. Couldn't so I know what comes with that. So being able to still boost your confidence, even if you a little fluffier than what you would like to be, and not being able to settle just because we have a little few extra pounds. And that was a thing, as well, that comes with low self-esteem. So helping you still show up as yourself is what I love to help women do.
Okay,
Love
you
seeing
plant
women regardless.
plant-based nutritionist, plant-based nurse. I love it. I'm on my fifth detox Monday.
Look at
Monday.
you.
Since the first of the year, I've been
Uh-huh.
doing detoxes, and it came as a result of me leaving my marriage
Oh,
because
okay.
I had to hear God clear.
Yes.
When I left, I had no direction. I had no guidance.
Mhm.
I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt like a feather in the wind. You know what I'm saying?
And how
And I
long were y'all
said
together, Tracey?
we was married for about 6.
Okay.
Okay. And we had the big we got married first. We ran out to the courthouse, we got married. We just went and did it. Right. We was happy. Girl, in love, in love. You my previous husband.
Yeah,
Girl,
yes,
I left in love. Oh my
yes,
God. I left in love. Okay. Just I still not a man.
yeah, yeah. Hey, that's what I'm saying. So your marriage is one of the ones I was like, oh, I love the way he catered to her. That's what
I
I'm
still
saying. You see
love
how you
that.
be envious of people?
And that's the thing. And people be outside, and I speak about that. People be outside and they see the couples, they see, what looks strong, what looks romantic, what looks, intimate, and it be something they envy. It's not so much of an envy of trying to destroy, but envy as, oh, I really want
I
that.
want
You
that.
know
Yeah,
what I'm
I want
saying?
that. Yes,
You really want that. You love that for that person, and you want that too, right? That you
yes,
had a desire. But a
yes.
lot of times you don't know what's going on inside the home.
Mm.
You don't know what's going on inside the home. And I'm telling you, every day I still have this hurt and this grief, some grievance in my heart for having feeling I had to leave my marriage. And it was all because I was doing everything to work on it. And I kept, needing him to help. I
Mm.
needed him to help work on it and do his part.
Mhm.
And he told me straight up he wasn't going to marriage counseling. He wasn't doing it. And he said I wasn't leaving. And and it was just it got so bad for me that I had to go in order to save myself. I
Okay.
had to go, and that's why. And I left him in love, and I've never chose anything. I never chose myself over anything, and so that's why I feel like he was my master teacher in that.
That's a saying and a quote, and this is a praise and worship all by itself. Cause
Yeah.
being cause again, Tracy, when you see you so used to seeing him. I'm talking about from the outside looking in, but
Yes.
you look so good and bright. And again, we don't know like behind the closed doors. So and look at you birthing your butterfly, and and all of this was necessary. So if you don't listen to Fantasia, you need to go to YouTube and play that song. It was necessary. That's the name of
Yes.
it. And
I'm
being
gonna
able
go
to
listen to it when I leave
yes,
here.
I'm
But I
telling
want to
you.
say, I want to thank him. I thank him every
Yes,
day.
yes.
I reached out to him the other day and said, "Are you all right?" I just because we don't talk or anything. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
when I left, I don't know if it was, his grief or he was hurt or what. I know he was hurt and I know he was grieving, but
Yeah,
he just he released me in a way where he no longer communicated with me. He just
yeah.
so I tried to communicate here and there, and he did not want any communication with me. And maybe that's his way of dealing with it, or maybe he
Mhm.
ghosted me. Maybe, I really don't know. I didn't ask the questions because I had to rebuild myself.
Yeah.
I had to
And
rebuild, and I had to find my identity because our identity is connected to the union. You know what
yes.
I'm saying?
Yeah, but you have to have that period of space because Demetrius and I, it was very even toxic communicating with them. Only until I
Right.
had to go ahead and divorce the whole situation and walk
Yes.
away in order to go back to embrace, okay, you know what? He is just the father of my child
Yeah.
and he's my ex-husband. So, and that's how I had to operate because part of me still was living in that shadow though, Tracy, even though he wasn't there.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily living in no shadow, and I wasn't like I needed to communicate with him. That wasn't it. It was
Yeah.
just we didn't have no closure.
Got
We
it.
no closure. Like it was a lot of unsaid things. There was no communication. Like I couldn't get nowhere. You
Yeah.
know how you trying to work something out, work something out, work something out. You need answers. You need this. You need. I could not get nowhere. I was just stuck in this space of I'm about to die. I'm about to be unalive if I don't get out of here because I couldn't get no cooperation and participation. So that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I had the opportunity to reach out to him not too long ago and
Okay.
just say, how are you? Are you well? And that I love you. And I hope you're taking care of yourself. You know what
So
I'm
do
saying?
so do you think it is a possibility of
No,
reconciliation?
no,
No?
no,
Okay. I said no too.
no, no. Of course, we gonna say that right now because where I'm at right now. But see, Mr.
You
Lee,
outside.
wait a minute, baby. The G Mr. Lee came, baby, and did a whole 360, right? So hey, you know what I'm saying? We can't always say never. But
No.
I don't know. Maybe I'm having this conversation. Maybe I brought you on. You know what I'm saying? And maybe this is like a little peephole view. I don't know. But put it like this: as of today, no. As
So
of
like I
today,
said,
no, but like I said, hey, you never know what can happen. But I know there's a lot of unsaid things. There's still a lot of pain. Like I said, there was no closure. You know what I'm saying? It's still just up in the air. There's a lot of things that have to be answered for. That just
yeah, and I
yeah,
don't think I touched on like forgiveness. In order for Demetrius and I know that when you do get him on, he's gonna be able to talk about that because again, we had to get to a point that we had to forgive because even when we see the guy that I cheated with, even if we see the girl that that he done talked to in the past, and we just kind of keep it moving. And I'm not jealous. When I'm saying jealous, I'm saying not like that. When I'm not going, he can like people pictures or whatever. I told him, I know what I am now and I know who I am. So
right.
Tracy, I know if you fumble the bag again, that'll be on you. I know I'm a force and to be reckoned with all by
Yes,
myself. So not being able to add. So I want people to know forgiveness had to come in because again, I would not be with him if he's gonna bring it up every time I turn around. Are you sure you're going to work? I don't have to hear that because
right.
we free, we leave our phones out, and he free to go and talk if he, see people. I want him to speak to him. I don't want him to. And I think some women want to be controlling and you don't want to be, you don't want them to have a robotic mind. You want people to
Yes,
do what they're gonna do, even in your absence. Cause Tracy, what they do in your absence, that's what counts. Not what they do in front of you. What they
right.
do when you not around.
Yes, yes, yes,
That's
yes.
what
So
matters.
we're gonna have to get the G Mr. Lee on up in here. I know y'all want to hear from the G Mr. Lee, right? We got to get some of these men's stories up in here too. I want to be able to represent some of the brothers and find out what's going on with them as well. Because see, we have put this marriage piece in this box, honey, and we think this is all it is what we seen, and like me and Angie said, it's a lot that's unsaid. It's a lot of things that we don't know until we actually get in it. So I want to thank you so much, Angie, Nurse
Thank you
Angie,
so
the
thank you so much.
plant-based nutritionist, detoxologist, for coming on and sharing with us your story of how you were married and got divorced and got married again to the same man and restored your family. That is a beautiful, beautiful blessing. And I thank you. How can we find you?
All right. You can follow the Lee Life Experience podcast on all social media handle, and you can go to wherever you streaming your podcast because we on it as well, Apple Music. So you can do that as well. But on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And again, we would love to have you as a guest, even for those your listening matter. That even if you want to come on and be a guest or put your questions in and topic, then you will get to hear Demetrius and our perception of what we think about your issues. So we normally air, and it's the text number is 833-370-1608. 833-370-1608, and put relationship without an S in the comment box. And that way you can get your topics heard and get our perception of what we think about that particular topic.
I love that. Now, how can we find you as far as your detox community?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well. My name is Angie Lee, but I go up under the handle the Detoxologist Nurse. So on all your social media platforms, so you'll be able to find me. And I think TikTok is on Angie Lee Blogs. But anyway, catch me on Instagram, and I will be doing another detox. I'm doing eating by your blood type that's currently. So again, some of us are eating the wrong food because our blood type says something different. Even if it's good to you, it still could be not interfering with your blood. So if you wonder why you're struggling with skin issues or weight loss and inflammation, come and then listen to some of my teaching on Instagram.
Yes, thank you, Angie. We appreciate you so much. And we want to thank everyone for showing up right here at Life After Divorce Show. And if you love what we shared today and you love the platform and the energy and the conversation, you make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Okay. Yes. Also, for more information about Life After Divorce Show, and if you also want to join our exclusive community so that you can get exclusive content and also know different show times and what we have going on, visit us at lifeafterdivorceshow.com. I am Tracey, the Sacred CEO, your host, and we are here dedicated in discussing marriage, relationships, and happiness after divorce. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings.